Welcome to the Morpheus Cyber Podcast. Today, designers code, robots connect. When graphic designers become overnight developers and $20 billion buys you the future of AI chips, you know the world's changing fast. Grab your phone and vote in our live polls. ahaslides.com/MCA7.
AI code editors are turning your Figma-obsessed designer into the next full-stack developer. No computer science degree required.
Nvidia just dropped $20 billion to buy their biggest rival Groq, because apparently crushing competition is cheaper than competing.
Hackers are using putty, yes, boring old putty, to exploit Cisco 0 days and steal enterprise secrets in plain sight.
Tesla's robots might soon read your thoughts via Neuralink, because apparently walking and talking wasn't creepy enough.
Vote along with us at ahaslides.com/MCA7. Let's dive in.
This is your captain speaking. At this time, I'm going to ask you to fasten your seatbelts. Flight 527, runway 8 kilo. You're clear for takeoff.
Hey everybody, it's recording day. Here we are. How's everybody doing? Anything new and exciting, Jim? Gus?
No, got a cold. I got that.
Oh.
Survived the
Still-
holidays, and
Still in California. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm deeply in debt. Spent a lot of money on Christmas.
Yeah, that Instapot got you, didn't it?
Yeah, it was tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
we've got some neat topics today, and I'm excited. Every day I wake up and I go find our new topics, and it's just like, oh my God, it's just super cool. There's all sorts of new things about designers into developers and just a whole bunch of stuff. What do you guys want to talk about first?
I think we do stick with that first whole topic about AI's now turning designers into developers. And that's cool. I mean, it's like in the past, it's always been that developers for maybe over the past 15 years where the software creation had to be sliced into all these narrow specialties. There was a front end guy, there was a back end guy, there was a DevOps, and each one had their own silo. And then UX was somewhere out there in the ether. Everybody was doing their own thing, and all that did is fragmented everything, and it created an entire economy around complexity. And that's, man, Bill, you and I have both been founders and worked with developers, and we may have ideas, but we had to run that through the developers before anything got turned into any kind of code. It was like pulling teeth and ripping your hair out, because it's like, I can't do anything about that. I got to wait on these guys to do this. But in reality now, that AI is just completely changing that and turning people with design ideas into real developers. And Bill, you've been doing a lot. You've taken the lead in our group of learning how to use some of these AI development tools and got me inspired. Now I really want to do it, because you've shown us how you've created something really cool. And people don't know, but our own podcast, we eat our own dog food. We are creating an application that helps us do our podcast. And Bill has been the front lead doing everything on this, spending hundreds and hundreds of hours. But man, it's just amazing things are turning out. So just go ahead and tell them a little bit about the tools that you've been using, like Cursor and the rest.
Yeah, I do use Cursor, but that's not my primary tool anymore. I now just use mainly Claude Code and Opus 4.5, which when I first started using it about 8 months ago, I would have to go through and find all sorts of errors. I'd do some vibe coding, I'd tell it what I wanted to do, I'd get it all organized, and it would write some code. And then I would have to go out and look at the code and click on everything to make sure there were no errors. Well, guess what? Don't have to do that anymore, because into my VM that generates all of this stuff, I just simply say, hey, install Puppeteer or Playwright. And after I make a change, go out and use the Chrome browser headless, go look at all the pages that we just touched or configured, and let me know if there's any errors on them. Boom, shakalaka. I have my own AI agent that actually goes and does that and finds the problems before I have to go. I used to be, I'd have to say, hey, coders, let's go do this, let's go do that. And then they'd do it. And then they'd say, well, but there might be some bugs in there. And of course, there's dozens or even hundreds of clickable locations. And you'd have to either hire somebody to go click on every eventuality of every click and every function and every entry. But now you just use Playwright or Puppeteer, those sort of tools, and it goes out and it analyzes. I don't have to go click around the user interface to find errors. It does it as part of the AI.
You've kind of arrived now, having used these tools for a while, but it might be helpful to the people that are listening to us to just tell us how you went through a progression. You did go through Cursor first before you got to where you are now. You used a lot of tools over time, and you've now let those drop off because you don't need them anymore. You've become more of I would say you're becoming an expert level AI developer. You're not your average guy anymore. You've been doing this for about a year
So
now.
it used to be, Jim, that I'd go out and find a software as a service, and then I would go in and have to learn for hundreds of hours how to, like Salesforce or you name it, whatever software as a service. I built our own CRM, and I built it to have all the functions that we want. And I gave Claude Code the English instructions on what I wanted to do and what I wanted it to do. And then it would come back and ask me questions, and then I would fill in the holes, and it would develop. Instead of getting Salesforce, which I've done, I've paid through the nose tens of thousands of dollars for Salesforce. And then you have to have near a full-time coder to be able to customize that monster for your particular company or application or purpose. And it's dawned on me. It's like, I don't need to pay Salesforce for the development environment and then hire people to go do it. I can just tell the code what I want to accomplish, how I want it to look, where I want it to be on the screen, and boom. Do you remember the movie Office Space? You remember?
Yes, of course.
Do you remember the guy who, when they were the consultants, Bob and somebody else asked, what is it that you do around here? And he says, I'm liaison to the engineers. And it's like, I have people skills, dang it. I remember that routine. That's how I used to feel, because I've had groups of coders that I worked with, and I'd say, look, I was a subject matter expert, and I said, we need to have this, and we need to look at that, and we need to do this capture, and when we see the server response time go up, we need to click and create an event that captures a packet trace, and then tells us, hey, you need to go look at this area of this packet trace because at 3:30 in the morning the thing went catatonic. I used to have to explain that to the coders, and they would first vet it because maybe I didn't know what I was talking about. Despite 30 plus years of packet analysis, I didn't know what I was talking about. They had to verify it. I have to convince them of what I believe is relevant. Of course, we're not even talking about the product manager at this point, because then you have to go through them as well, because the coders are the technical vetters of the solution. The project manager or the product manager makes sure that the customers that he knows about or she knows about want those capabilities and what the market will do. How many more people are going to buy the product if it has this feature or that feature? That's what a product manager does.
Let me put this into some real life here real quick, that we can get to the point on a couple of things here that still have to be made. One, my Uber driver the other day when I went to the airport told me that he lost his job as a QA tester. I said, hey, look, AI is the future, buddy. You're going to have to learn some AI apps. You're going to have to learn how to do your job in AI. If you do know how to do QA work, you need to find out what apps being used to do that. Make sure it's AI enabled. Be good at it. Then walk in with your credentials saying, look, I know this app. This is one of the AI apps that I know. I'm ready to take that job back again. That's what it's going to take. He said, really? I didn't know that. I said, yeah, buddy, just get in there, start doing it. It's cheap. If you got to pay $25 a month to buy an AI platform to code in a little bit, just do it, learn it, get out there, and you'll get your job back. Because he was just living off of his Uber driving. I said, dude, there's a future for you. Don't lose hope. That was a good thing. And that's what we're saying to everybody else out there. Look, I know you probably lost your job for some reason in AI, but you can get it back. Just go back and go
And that's
learn
going to
AI.
happen dramatically in the next 12 to 14 months. It's just going to be, they
Right.
say 14% of the workforce is going to be displaced by AI before the end of the year.
Here's a different angle, though, that I'm a little concerned about, is that now we're going to see all these applications flooding the internet by people who now can program, who didn't know how to program before. But the only problem is I put on my CISSP hat and I say, are these going to be secure apps? Heck no.
Yeah.
They are not going to be secure apps. They are still going to require somebody that does know how to do this to be able to test the app to make sure that it's hardened against hackers and others that would go in and completely take control over their apps and ruin their entire endeavor. You can't build a business around an unsecure app. They're going to have to get that done because this is just going to create mistakes at scale, huge mistakes.
Yes.
It's so
It
important.
is. I agree with you, Jim. But the cool thing is that Bill touched on this, but the language is no longer C++, Python, whatever.
Sure.
It's English or whatever language
yeah.
you speak. And that builds a bridge. And as Bill alluded to, what this allows is for the subject matter expert to be able to what it is that they want to create. There's no middleman. And I hear what you're saying about the security, and that's no question going to be, and hopefully things will evolve to where that's somehow built in. But I think it's pretty exciting.
The AI will do the pen testing for you. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding. You
And the
know, you
QA.
just have to code it up. And now that doesn't preclude needing security experts to take a look at it and
That's right.
analyze. But if you've got a whole bunch of code, the code is pretty good at analyzing itself. You do need that human. Everything that I do in my code, like for this podcast, whether it's a thumbnail generation from all of our content and automatically generate these things or whatever, there is a human spot in there that I create in part of the process. It's human QA. I can take a look at it before I just boom, click a button and it's all up on YouTube and it's all working. There's a lot of additional steps. And you just put a human in there to do the QA, to just make sure that it passes the smell test before it goes out. Now, with our situation, we're doing a podcast. Well, we do research, vast amounts of research on X, on news, on podcasts. Every podcast that's relevant to our topics, we go out and get the RSS feeds, and on our systems, we listen to the audio, fully transcribe it, and then we tell us, here are all the podcasts who had that particular topic. And then we choose from news, X trends, that sort of thing, and podcasts. And from that, we gather all of the topics, and then we say which topics are interesting to us. And then we nominate those topics. That's what we do every week. We nominate them.
Don't give it all away, Bill. This is the #1 sub-billionaires podcaster. We could be the last one if you keep giving away all our secrets.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say, Bill. I thought that
it's
was
a powerful
proprietary.
application. Powerful. And Bill has built a very powerful application. Let's leave it at that. And someday one of you guys are going to want to use this application. All right, we better move
All in
on
due
to
time.
another subject here.
What I wanted to talk about, guys, was some pretty big news came out Christmas Eve, and that is that Nvidia made their largest acquisition ever by far of a company called Groq. Not to be confused with Groq, but Groq. And what they
Spell
do,
it for everybody.
Groq
Yeah, so
versus
it's-
Groq.
yeah, Groq.
Groq.
Not to be confused with Groq. So Groq, the reason why this is interesting is that they spent $20 billion buying this. They're announcing, and if it gets approved, they're going to be acquiring Groq. And the reason why this is important is that Groq is the new kid on the block, and they're doing some really special things. We all know that with large language models, the training is a big part of it, and Nvidia is the market leader in that area. But what Groq does is they make these, what they're calling LPUs, language processing unit. And what they're able to do is once the program's trained, these LPUs will increase the speed in which the AI responds dramatically. I mean, like they do 500 tokens plus versus 10 to 50, which is what the GPUs do. GPUs are very good at training, but they're not this inference. And this is what brings to the table. And it really puts NVIDIA in a situation where they control everything. You know, the idea is that the inference accelerators are dramatic and it's responsible for just the quickness in which AI responds to questions and comments. I don't know if it seems like it might be problematic because it gives them a monopoly here, but what do you guys think?
Hey, Bill,
Well,
you know what the name of that thing is? I don't even
CUDA?
remember that. Yeah, there you go. That, say, if they control that,
That's the
plus,
proprietary component that is their software that runs the stuff over to the GPU and manages GPU tasks.
yeah,
I
I know
mean,
you got more experience at that than any of us researching on NVIDIA's platforms. Now they own that, which is the primary processing unit that actually does all this processing, TPUs and all that. But now also they're going to control the LPUs.
if it gets approved,
Well,
that's
now let me tell you that they are still subject to other competitors. And Google has these new chips, these inference chips, and they're pretty powerful. And guess who's using those bad boys? AWS. There's a whole bunch of people who are on the bandwagon. And then Broadcom is out there, who's been one of the chip makers who do all network interface card components and switch components. Broadcom is doing all these different things. And they are entering into these because they were doing network processors. And now these are essentially the same type of component. They're just GPU processors for inference. There's a healthy amount of competition out there. Now, I use Groq, a GROQ. And what did I use it for? It was when I wanted, and I'll just tell you what the application was. I wanted to be able to listen to our show in real time and have a screen up that would suggest things that maybe Jim didn't cover or Gus didn't cover before we close out a segment and come up and say, hey, you forgot to tell everybody about this. How do you do that in real time? Groq is the only thing that can process tokens quickly, and that is their forte. You use Groq when you need real-time information. Whether you're sitting and listening to a sermon and it's recording on your iPhone and it's going directly to Groq, and Groq is listening to it, and then it's basically saying, oh, he made the wrong scripture reference for that problem or whatever, or hey, here's another one. Because what do you do when you're sitting and listening in an audience, or you're in an interview? You're in most interviews these days are, yes, they do it in person toward the end, but a lot of your interviews are what? Online. You take the feed of all your audio, send it to Groq, and it comes back, and that by the time an interviewer is interviewing a candidate, the interviewer articulates a question and Groq is listening to it and gives the candidate the answer before. I'm telling you, I'm sorry.
Slick. That is slick.
And I wanted to create this capability that I could listen anywhere, just on my iPhone. I could just listen to whatever I wanted. And then it would basically say, Bill, you might want to know about this and this and this, because when I sit and listen to a lecture, I'm always thinking about other applications of it.
Yeah.
My brain is going in the background and doing the very questions that come up into your head, and maybe even before they come up into your head, the AI has listened to him and said, hey, if he's
Think
talking about
this.
this, you should also
Yeah.
see the relation to that. I'm telling you, that's where the world is.
Yeah.
We're not only looking at systems that, for instance, there's a lot of talk about systems that just watch our screen. We're using our computer all day long, doing emails, doing whatever. And AI can look at what you're doing and suggest shortcuts to be more efficient and do a better job with less effort. If it's watching your screen 24/7, it could be watching you watching this podcast. It could be listening to the podcast. It can be then suggesting, and then it knows what? It knows your job. It knows your title at the company. It knows what you're working on. It can start suggesting how you could apply things that you learn on the podcast, and then put that to start putting that information in, and then you can add that to your business things or your personal life. And that's why I was using Groq. I got real-time analysis of things, and that's the only one that can do that real-time analysis. Is that cool or what?
Yeah, you
Groq.
don't see any relation with
They
owning
went
Groq?
broke owning Groq.
What do you think, Bill? Do you think there's any conflict there of interest, or does that
Not going to
present
stop
a
that at
national
this point.
infrastructure
I
risk
mean,
to us?
take a look at OpenAI. Is there anybody going over and pulling out the rug from under them? No. They were the ones they were the first mover, let's face it. And IBM, like I said in other podcasts, has been talking AI for years, 10, 20 years for
This
business.
is a merger, though. This is a
But-
merger of
but
two
it-
different.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about here is that there has been AI for the last 20 plus years or even longer. But the thing is, what catalyst was it that allowed AI to start taking over? When they put it in the average person's hands and made the average person have the not the IQ, but the ability to be accessing doctoral level information and then acting on it and employing that. They didn't have to read 20 books to get that information. The AI said, hey,
I've read the
Bill,
books.
I need you to move over here and do this instead of that, because it has a doctorate in about 100 different study areas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've used it already with my doctor. I don't know. And I haven't used it like one of those guys.
I wasn't talking about medical. I was talking about doctorate
I know
in
what you're talking
philosophy or whatever. Yeah.
about. We're now experts in everything.
Exactly. There's another interesting point on this merger or this acquisition, and that is that Groq uses Samsung for their manufacturing. And Nvidia has a big problem with being dependent on Taiwan. It's a huge risk for them. And this instantly gives them manufacturing in a friendly environment. And that's the strategic move that I think's going to benefit
That's a
them.
good point. Good point. I hadn't even thought about that. Good one.
I'm sure that's part of their logic.
We keep talking about security, and that's one thing we always want to have everything made in the United States. We can have more control over that, more security, but a lot of it's just going to be offshore for now. But anyhow, the future says that we need to bring as much as we can back on shore. Now, talking about security, Bill, you and I both follow security. You heard about that Cisco zero-day attack that hit their enterprise applications.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
That. You are the one who knows a little bit more about all that. But anyhow, apparently the code is, I'll go into it fine. Anyhow, apparently within their hardware, meaning their firewall hardwares and other security devices, the bad guys, let's just put it that way, the bad actors have found a way to get into it and have been in it for some time. They've been breached, not only them, but what was the other one? We said WatchGuard firewalls were also breached as well. That now immediately now look at how much of the market that Cisco holds in the firewall market.
Well,
I mean,
Cisco,
they're what, 50%, 60% of the market out there in firewalls.
And networking equipment in general. And where the
Sure.
breach is on their licensing, Cisco smart licensing. Once they get into that, they get the keys to the kingdom. I mean, that's a very vulnerable thing. For 50% of the networking components in the world, it's Cisco. Now,
Yeah, it was mainly in their ASA and firewall products, but WatchGuard too. I don't even know what it is that WatchGuard is not a subsidiary of Cisco. What's the odds of that? How did the two of those get breached and not a whole bunch of other people?
Well, it's a related thing. It's not direct, but the issue is that once you figure out how to break into a Cisco, it kind of gives you the how to break into other firewalls. I think that's That's what we're talking about. But they're using PuTTY and SSH to attack your network. And basically, it's kind of like a burglar wearing a police uniform. They blend in perfectly until you look very closely.
Yeah.
And then, like this particular 0 day that we're talking about, it was like 45 to 60 days after they knew that it was happening. It took them for an enterprise network patch deployment, it took 45 to 60 days, leaving all of that open
Yeah.
during that window. All those devices were open, which is probably way too long. You know it on day 1 and you can't get a patch until day 45. What do? That's a good case for some technology that you and I've worked with, Jim, is that
Yeah.
if we can take in the systems that we've developed, you can still run Windows 95, because what we do is we limit how far the packets can go. You can still
Right.
use old technology. It's just that bad guys cannot gain access to it because it's too many hops away. And
Yeah.
that capability hasn't really caught on yet, but that's how you can insulate. It's not just running old Windows 95, it's also running new systems. Why would, for instance, now out there in yonder, every Oracle database has a default packet lifetime that can go around the world. It can go anywhere to anywhere. If you shorten that lifetime and say, this is only good, this is the packet lifetime on packets to and from this Oracle database server is only enough for people within the enterprise to be able to access it. And or restrict it, it can't go further than the firewall. Even if your firewall's wide open for something, you can use this technology to limit how far packets travel. And essentially, you can solve some of these problems that it takes 45 days, 60 days to get a patch in. If you can figure out a way to allow people who are supposed to get access to that, but not allow the entire globe to get to it,
Yeah.
while it's open. And I've thought about this for a long time. You've got firewalls out there right now that have a hop count of 255. That means it can go through 255 routers. Well, why would you leave a firewall set that could be broken into on your outside perimeter that can have an SSH session to it? And of course, your router jockeys will say, oh, well, we can't do that. We keep that. No, you don't. You don't.
We've been in the thought leadership side of this whole idea of containment, and it's not really anymore. I think they're starting to find out that it's very difficult to stop the bad guy if you're going to give them free access through the network. And we've created a system Bill and I are a part of, and we are getting our word out, getting the message out more and more about this needs to be applied in every switch, every layer 3 switch that's out there. It should be done now. But containment, segmentation, you're starting to hear those words more and more because they're finding out now that they can't do it logically anymore. It has to be physical.
Well, they're doing it with VPNs. They're
Right.
making a VPN for every
Right.
component and every system. The problem is that that's pretty far reaching and you have to have that for every user. This
Yeah.
is a very simple thing that only deals with the device itself and just says this router that's on the internet cannot be logged into more than like 3 hops away, which would be from the enterprise into that router from their network. And it won't
Yeah.
accept anything from the Russian Federation or China or
Right.
Russia or wherever. And the problem is that this hasn't really caught on very much, but it is a very powerful capability.
It's finally starting to, and it's really the simple concept of reducing the blast radius. I mean, you're going to get a hit. You are going to get hit at some point,
Yeah.
but you must contain it. You must bring that blast radius as small as you can, that when you do get hit by an attacker, that he does not have free access on a trusted device that you've allowed to go across your network. They've taken over this trusted device, and now they just move laterally through your network. That cannot be allowed.
If it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get a patch and you know that it's vulnerable,
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you figure out another way to lessen the vulnerability? Anyway,
Yeah,
I
I
hope
think we've talked
Cisco's I
about,
hope Cisco's listening. And Bill, I
yeah,
think you
we,
sounded a little bit short when you say it's simplistic. It's basic to the frame, the actual packet, and the way that you guys do that, I think is ingenious.
yeah,
thank you very much, Gus.
the simplicity is sometimes hard for people to understand. It's like, what? You just limit how far a packet can
Well,
travel?
people say
Right.
this technology has never been used before. It's not wide.
No.
I'll just tell you that every BGP router in the world uses this technique to limit who it peers with to the adjacent nodes by limiting the hop count to 1. Don't tell me that it's not used. This has
Yeah.
been used to keep the entire internet safe, the internet routers themselves, the BGP routers, from peering with and telling other neighbors anything, because it has a hop count of 1. The packet will not traverse routers. It stops because the two routers that need to talk to each other can. But if that packet got loose, it could peer with somebody else, and then you're really in trouble.
Yeah.
It has been used, and it is tried and true. And we've been working on that for a long time.
Be aware out there, people, that there are solutions, how simple they may seem, are very often the very best ones. And those are this simple solution to control how far packets can travel is critical to security, because every other method has failed to this point. This is a surefire way to stop a majority. I can't stop everything, because insider threats that's a problem. You got somebody who's inside your system that knows how the system works. Sure, they're going to be able to break it. But in general, from an outside attack from anywhere or a lateral movement, this is the answer.
Speaking of the next segment, Tesla Optimus is looking at having a Neuralink integration. I can't imagine how
I love this.
how a person who has had a brain injury or some other malfunction in their brain who gets a Neuralink in, and then they keep upping the number of bits per second that you can communicate from a brain out through the Neuralink. But imagine somebody who's quadriplegic or just can't do anything for themselves. They can now speak a lot of times with the Neuralink implant. But think about this: instead of speaking to your nurse or somebody who's there to assist you, speaking to an Optimus robot and saying, "Hey, I'd like a glass of orange juice."
I think that's cool.
Well, you can do that. You can do that without the Neuralink. The Neuralink is going to take your thoughts and automatically control. And when I think that's an interesting subject, but who cares? The way I look at it is just like you said. You can speak to the robot, or you can go tell it to go do the dishes verbally. That's available right now. I think the Optimus is huge. I think that the Neuralink is not relevant, but what the robot, that is a big marketplace. And it's if you compare it, if you look at Tesla, obviously they're known for cars. I mean, we all know they're much more than that, but that's how they got started. There's not a lot of profitability in cars. You take a $40,000 car, the average net profit is somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. Okay, that's it. With these robots, they could probably make a subscription model, reoccurring revenue. Even if the sales even come close to what they're saying it's going to be, the profitability is ginormous.
And the application is pretty huge too, because I don't know anyone who, like last week, we talked about the iRobot and having those little vacuum cleaners that make your carpet look really cool and groom your carpet. Those are pretty cool. Of course, that company went bankrupt. Who knows what's going to come out of that? But this is an area where they're dealing with the dexterity of the robot's hands. And it's only a matter of time. You start out simple and you keep moving and you get better and better. And once that code starts working to operate the hands more dexterously, once that code is written, then they can go learn how to grab this, how to throw balls, how to
They've
catch
already
balls.
shown they can sew, they can thread a needle. That they've arrived to that point already. It's cool, but I don't want us to go far away from the Neuralink thing. Don't dismiss that. For most of you just are listening to us, we're not dismissing the value of Neuralink. I mean, people, paraplegics, those that no longer can use their own body to move and do things, can now just think a thought and then cause a robot to go do it for you, is tremendously great. It's amazing that it could even do that. It might be able to also pick a person up, put them in a car, and then the car drives them somewhere. They now have full mobility when they may be a paraplegic and they can go and do everything. It is astounding what that is doing. Now, think even further beyond that, and I had an idea. Neuralink implants. What if we have a criminal element in our world here? Some, they say they're crazy from birth almost. I mean, they have this, what do they say, this tendency to want to hurt people all the time. Anyhow, what if, and I'm way off here, I know, but if we had an implant and anytime they had those urges, now the AI said, no, you're not going to do that. That's not what you want to do. It retrained their brain while those thoughts and impulses that those people have, could be corrected possibly down the road. And unfortunately, we have to put an implant to do it. But I think I think Elon Musk said that he, in the future, would even consider having an implant that would connect him directly to the internet or to information, that he didn't have to ever lack for knowledge or information at any time.
Well, just think about this as sub-billionaire podcasters that are over 50 years old by a little bit.
Yeah.
We all know that our lifetime has limits. And even though that we are finding ways to live longer, to be more healthy, we still know that there is like 120 years maybe, or whatever is pretty much the max, or at least to date. But imagine if we can have a Neuralink put in that helps us in, being infirmed as we age, and to help us in those areas. I see that as being a powerful capability, not just people who've had brain injuries or whatever. I mean, look at cochlear implants. You see those cochlear implants, and it's revolutionary. People could not hear at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and then they can hear, which is just absolutely astounding.
Yeah. You watch some
So
of those
Jim,
videos.
I don't argue that Neuralink is significant for all the reasons you just said. But guess what? All the reasons you just said had nothing to do with its tie-in to the robot. I think we have a perfectly good way to deal with Optimus, and that's that you can talk to it. Sure, there's probably 0.001% of the people can no longer talk because of whatever there. Maybe there's an application there. But keep in mind that when they put these implants in, due to scarring, they lose their ability to communicate by 15% per year, per month. What that means is that
know that.
Yeah,
That's
because of the
amazing.
scar tissue. They're going to have to replace these things twice a year, is what I figured, roughly 7-8 months, just doing the math. And I think just for I don't think it's worth it to bridge the gap to be able to telepathically tell a robot to go do the dishes when you can say, hey, go do the dishes. I'm calling
Now,
a little bit of
there are some
errors.
security risks along with this, because Neuralink interfaces create an unprecedented attack surface. Hackers could literally control human-operated robots. And medical device regulations weren't designed for wireless brain implants controlling autonomous robots. These are, new security problems to deal with. And that's just intrinsic with, as we develop AI, as we do anything, it can be used improperly. We're just going to have to look at managing those security risks as we go.
I didn't know that there was a loss over time of that connector. That would make sense. That wouldn't even be good for, like, down the road, where Elon Musk said that he would consider having one, unless there was a way that was not the case, that you didn't
Well,
ever have to
I don't
worry
know if
about
it
I'm sure they'll
impacts a
work on it.
person's brain, but it impacts the quality of the Neuralink
Communication. It doesn't do damage to
receptors.
the brain. It just
Yeah.
it hurts the communication between it loses
Well,
its ability to broadcast.
it's kind of like a
Hmm.
pacemaker, which stimulates electrically the heart to beat properly. It has to be placed at the right spot to be able to provide that. When you go into the brain, you have to put the sensors, which are very sensitive. Well, they're learning and mapping the brain. They're mapping the brain for the ability to accomplish that. And they're getting better and better at it. We've only been at this for a few years. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, but I do see the Optimus is all positive upside, having a robot. My own sister has a disability and has difficulty walking. She can no longer drive. She has problems seeing now. Yeah, I would think if I could ever afford to get her a robot down the road, it would be great for her life. Someone to take her with her to grocery shopping, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
absolutely. And Tesla, they're predicting 25 to 30 billion dollar industry. And
yeah.
there's a huge market. I mean, I can't think of a segment that wouldn't want a robot.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the other side of it is the robots. You're seeing they said, when do we expect, did you hear Elon Musk say, they asked him, when do you expect slaughter bots to show up? And he said, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah,
5 to 10 years.
unemotionally.
Slaughter bots? Yeah, ones that go out and kill people? Yeah, 5 to 10 years. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I thought about that too, the implications for war. Are we looking at the new, plus they probably can fly. It'd be a half drone, half
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
fighter.
Yeah.
And then if they have the Neuralink, then they're all in sync.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like the new
So-
episode of Tron. Did you see the new episode of Tron?
No.
Oh my gosh. That thing can kill anything and rebuild itself again. Anyhow,
Yeah.
end of
Wow.
story.
Wow.
It's a compelling
let's
story.
Let's put a bow on this thing. Listen, we are talking about all of our topics: AI, cyber, quantum, crypto, robotics. And take a look. All of those are starting to converge. Tesla has 3 items right now that they've converged: the robot, the AI, and autonomous. And we are in automobiles, we are converging all these technologies at light speed. And that is what we are covering in this podcast. The number 1 rated sub-billionaire podcast of the world. And we are focusing on the tech futures and making certain that we all understand it, we keep abreast of it, and we bring people up to speed very quickly. And every week, I tell people often the way to become an expert in anything is to just expose yourself to it on a weekly or regular basis. And within a few months, you have expertise in an area that you never had before. That's what we're doing here. Thanks, guys, for jumping in there. I know, Gus, you're in California. Jim, you're in California. And I'm over here in Austin, Texas, all by my lonesome. And we really appreciate everybody. I hope everybody's been able to utilize our system to gain access to the slide materials that we have. We have a lot of other information. We have polls. We have participation that you can get from this podcast by entering the QR code that you'll see on the thumbnail. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
At this time, I'm going to ask you to fasten your seatbelts.
On behalf of the flight crew, thank you for flying with us and have a pleasant day.